And we listened a lot today about different regions here around Saloniki. We talked about Cyprus, about Turkey. Please, if you like, you can sit down. And we talked about Syria and other parts of the world. And now I'm very happy to introduce to you our session together with Global Project Partner. So we will have on stage the member of the Steering Committee Digital Arabia Foundation, partner at Sport Aviation. This is Evelyne Turk. So hello, good to have you here. We have Amel Saidane from the. She's a member of the Steering Committee Digital Arabia, and I'm very happy to introduce to you Ayat Al-Ani, Vice President, German Arab Association. And I'm very happy that you're here, because we talked a lot about what Republica can do in this region and how we can build up the network there. So please give a warm applause for these three very interesting speakers tonight.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Again, thank you for having us here. As you said, it's an interesting region. It's also a very difficult region, and we do appreciate the possibility to talk within the context of the Republica a little bit about the digitization in the Arab world. What I would like to do in a very short kind of manner, describe to you what the effects of digitizations are on the Arab economies and societies. There are some positive opportunities, there are also some risks involved. I'm very glad that Eva Turk is here from Lebanon. She will show you a couple of examples that are popping up now in Lebanon of platforms, of startups, of social entrepreneurs. I'm also very happy that Amel Saidane is here from Tunisia, and she will show you some of the experiences of Tunisia in that respect. And then finally, and that's the main reason actually for coming here, is we would like to discuss with you an idea we have on how to move forward with the topic of digitization in the Arab world, because as you know, the political and economic situation is very difficult, so we have to look for new ways of connecting and collaborating. And I'm looking forward also for your remarks, and please feel free to interrupt anytime. So what I will do is I give you a short overview, then we'll switch over to Eva and Amel. Interrupt anytime if you feel that you have to. Digitization in the Arab world. So, of course, the Arab region as part of the global community will be affected by digitization in a very drastic manner. And now I'm not only talking about the nice and fancy topic of startups, which seem to pop up everywhere and which are seen by some people as the resolvement of everything that is problematic in the Arab world. First of all, you have to acknowledge that digitization, industry 4.0 or platform capitalism, however you want to label it, will have drastic effects on Arab economies. So we are talking about new factories that are actually working more or less in a lights-out manner. Lights-out factories are called that way because you can turn off the light and robots will continue to work because they don't need any light. And we have the impact of those companies and of those factories. They will be felt in the Arab world. I give you an example of a German shoe company which opened this year, the first shoe company in Germany again, after having left Germany for a couple of years because it was too expensive to build shoes. Now this company opens up a shoe factory and they will produce 1 million pair of shoes in Germany with, I think, 15 workers. So you can imagine the impact of those kind of automated factories on the Arab world, which are pretty much dependent on low-wage, low-skill industries and factories. And of course, these are exactly the kind of factories which will be taken out by digitization. So if you think about countries like Egypt that produce, for instance, textile, clothing, they will be affected as soon as robots learn to sew clothes, and they will do so in about 4 to 5 years. As you see in the example, robots can resemble shoes. That's probably easier than sewing trousers, but nevertheless, the impact will be quite dramatic. The other impact is that the Arab economies are, of course, also part of the supply chain, especially of Western Europe companies. And when you look on the way that, for instance, German, French car companies will change in the next couple of years, then you can, I think, easily imagine what the supply chain will look like for the Arab countries, which are now trying to fit into the current design of automobiles, producing parts for the current design of automobiles. But what will happen if you design electric cars, which need 60% less parts than the current cars? So they don't need all of those supply chain companies in Arab countries, countries that are very much focused on this kind of industry, like North Arab countries in North Africa, Egypt, etc. And those come, for instance, digitalization in the mobile and the car industry is already having negative effects on employment, for instance, in Germany and in France, and it will have also negative effects on the next wave in Arab countries. So Arab countries spend quite a lot of money and effort in trying to sneak into the structure of Western European economies. And now that Western European economies are changing, so will Arab economies as well. So in Germany, where I come from, we talk a lot about the effects of digitization on our economy, but right now we don't have a clue on the effects on developing countries and the Arab region. And that's quite dramatic. And I will assume that the effects of robots and machines in those countries will be much more harsh and much more critical than in Western Europe. In Western Europe, to some extent, you will have things like basic income, you will have social services, you have good universities, but what are Arab countries and other countries in Asia going to do with the changing economy? On the other side, Arab economies are not very good at making money with data. I show you here an example from a McKinsey study on what kind of countries are making money out of data. And of course, you see countries like Singapore, Switzerland, the US on top, and I think Egypt is like 178. And Egypt is one of the more sophisticated economies. So the idea we had in a workshop in Egypt is with responsibles there is that why can't we use data which you collect on the Suez Canal, because most of huge part of the world trade is going via the Suez Canal. Why can't you utilize this data and do something with it? And of course it was a crazy idea, but on the other hand, I felt that it was one very unusual kind of discussion for those countries. So they have some data which is useful, which you can sell, but they have not made a business out of it. In parallel, you have, of course, an emerging, let's say, a youth movement in the Arab countries. Maybe the Arab youth have made a substantial impact on the revolutions during the Arab Spring. Who can tell afterwards? But I think what you can already tell and what you can already measure is that there is a quite amount of political, social, and economic deliberation discussion on the internet. And from the studies we have, we can say that it's very diversified. So it does not just resemble one opinion, but it resembles many opinions. Of course, there are people who are who feel affected by religious topics, but it's only a minority. I show you here a kind of measurement on possible topics there. So it's a very evolving scene, but it's not yet connected with the traditional political system. So it's living in the shadows, or it's living in the cyberspace, but it's weakly connected, if at all, with the current traditional system. On the other hand, digitization offers some prospects as well. So not everything is negative, but we have some opportunities as well, like everywhere. And we begin to see some Arab startups, businesses are springing up that try to build new services. Like, for instance, I brought you the example here of a company in Egypt that is diversifying into recycling. And this is, of course, the lessons from digitization. So you have a product, well, that's good, but you need to build services around products. And I've shown you here another example from an American company which repairs stuff, actually, and you can send your handy or your mobile phone or other items via postal services to probably a factory in Pakistan, and then they repair it for you. But maybe Arab countries can come up with a similar idea. So there's the option of new business ideas in the Arab world as well. In the Arab world, we can also see that some platforms are springing up that try to solve problems like unemployment, connecting people. Like, I brought you this example here from Tunisia, where programmers in Tunis are connected with the European companies, and they're working on task packages assigned by those companies. So maybe there is a way of reconnecting some Arab skills with the supply chain of global companies via platforms. At least there is an opportunity here. Interesting also is that there is a maker scene that's popping up a little bit in the Arab countries as well. And I think using 3D printers, this could mean a lot. So that this could mean, for instance, that Arab countries could build parts that they had to import formerly. So we have some kind of import substitution. And a very clever journalist from Economist told me, well, if you can repair a car, basically you can build a car as well. And if there's one thing that Arabs can do very well, is that repairing cars. So if you can repair a car, when you can print out parts of the car, maybe you can build first cars that are, remember, more simpler than the ones we are used to now. So there are some ideas now. And there are some I think, really good examples of what could be done. I like very much the example that President Obama in his last year endorsed the Nation of Maker program to reindustrialize the United States. And maybe this could also be a program where we implement laboratories and networking spaces, co-working spaces in the Arab world to reintegrate the skills that are not being utilized right now. Another option could be to enhance learning. There are already lots of companies like EDX and others moving into the Arab world, trying to offer world-class education. Well, not only that, I brought you the example here from a study conducted by the Egyptian Ministry of Information, which actually shows that already 70% of Egyptian teachers use the internet, and we can assume students as well, to get a grip on content. So that scene is changing dramatically as well. And we can see the first signs of consolidation. I think this is also very important. So you always have people that work for startups, that try to build up startups, but it's very important that you connect and that you help and support each other. And we see, especially in Egypt, but also in Jordan, the first sign of consolidations, conferences that work very well, where lots of startups are coming to and try to share their experience. Well, finally, what could it mean? What could it mean? I would assume that at the end of the day, we can see that the state or the government in Arab countries also, like in Western Europe, moves towards being a platform. That is, the government does not provide services by itself anymore, but it provides a possibility for you to connect with others and deliver the service. And I brought you, and maybe at the end of the day, the state will look like a Meta platform. And I brought you the Meta platform here from Cairo, where you can see that there are already some very interesting initiatives are taking place. And there's another possibility, of course, and this other possibility is that the state and the Arab world will take the direction that China is going. And I brought you here a very interesting overview about the China social credit system, which I think is, like it or not, probably the future of the digital state sooner or later. So each of you and all companies will get a kind of score dependent on some algorithms which we don't understand and is not disclosed. And via the scoring, behavior is somehow manipulated. And this is of course also a danger that this could happen. And this also inspires us to do something and try to consolidate, and we will talk about that in a couple of minutes, I would say the positive energy that's in Arab countries, even under the most difficult circumstances. Try to connect them and do something that is going in the positive direction. Before we do that discussion, I want to give you, with the help of my colleagues, a short overview of what is happening in two very important countries. One is in Tunisia, which to the Arab world is very important because it's one of the few countries where democratization seems to work in a way, although the economic process is somehow sluggish. And also we want to show you what is happening in Lebanon. Lebanon, also probably the most sophisticated culture-wise of all Arab countries, and also very liberal compared with most of the Arab countries. So please, Amel, could you share with us your Tunisian experience?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'll try to draw a picture, closer to the mic. I'll try to draw a picture of what Tunisia looks like, especially from the youth perspective today. So I really think that there's something going on between Facebook and the Tunisians. So I think it's really a true love story, because if you look at the Tunisian population on internet, it's 6.4 million, and we have also a total number of monthly active Facebook users of 6.4 million. So it's kind of pretty close to 100%, which puts us on the top list of Facebook users in the world. So I think Mark Zuckerberg should think of something like the Nobel Prize for Facebook Prize or something like that, because we're giving him plenty of data. I don't know if it's going to be any useful, but we're giving plenty of data. And you might also think these guys have nothing to do except checking Facebook, but I can tell you there is a lot we can do with Facebook. So in Tunisia, Facebook is good for accelerating revolutions, for instance. So the Arab Spring story and the internet-enabled uprising, you know the stories. So Facebook has played an important role there. Facebook is, for Tunisians, a very important source of reliable news. So I really do check Facebook a lot, because if you don't do it, you'll just miss something. It's used by ministries, by companies as the key source, the key channel for communication. I don't know, ministries would update their Facebook page, but they wouldn't necessarily update their web page, which is last update 20th of April 2012, for example. It's also a cool thing for doing business. I've asked last week, actually, a young guy who was doing something around the construction businesses, and he's using digital media a lot. And I've asked him what did the digital transformation of the world bring to your life, and he said, we finally can do some business. And this is actually interesting to see how much business is being done on Facebook and on the internet. And I hope that the government and institutions will try to find a way to include this movement into the real economy loop. So and not to punish them or restrict them from doing it, because this is business happening. So 30% of the internet traffic is generated by Facebook, which is huge. Something else is going on YouTube. So YouTubers are in Tunisia just for love, because they will have a lot of hurdles. They will be facing a lot of hurdles to monetize their activity on YouTube, because the Tunisian currency is not convertible, because it's complicated. So people will always find a way to realize their profits from YouTube, but it's extremely complicated. They will transfer whatever they have earned on YouTube into Skype credits, and then to transform it into whatever. They will make it work somehow and lose 50% of the benefits on the way, but they're not really doing it for profit, because these guys have found a platform to express themselves, to show their talent. And so initially the first YouTube videos were kind of leaks of the former president videos at the times of the Arab Spring, and now it's turning into real movement where people are showing their talent, mainly of comedy, when we just have difficult times, so we need to laugh almost every day. So people are telling us about showing their comedy, their new music styles like rap is getting acknowledged through YouTube, a lot of do-it-yourself videos, and also a lot of book sharing videos, which is amazing if you look at statistics that tell you that Tunisians read 1 page per year, and you have a lot of successful people, so YouTube channels sharing about books. We have noticed also that a lot of media, online media, is coming up. So, which is the case all over the place in the world, but it's kind of big numbers. We don't have any official statistics there, but we have noticed that it's new media coming up every day. Definitely, it's a learning process. So there is a lot of we are learning there because it's a place for news. But it's also a place for humors, for defamations, a race for likes and shares. It's kind of content farms as well. People are copying and pasting from everywhere. So, but this is gonna this is changing. This is moving, and it's maturing, let's say. And we've also noticed the emergence of some new phenomena, like, for example, a new way of, an innovative way of using the language. We have a kind of dialect. The Tunisian language is not the official Arabic we write, so we are not using the Arabic anymore because it was kind of linked to the old regime, the official style. So a lot of Tunisian is being used a lot as a language of communication in the media, and since there are some sounds that we cannot write with the Latin words, we have invented new letters like I don't know, the qa and the a. These are we are using the 3 and the 9 and the 7 and the 5 in order to tell them. Anyways, so we kind of inventing a new language through the emergence of digital media. We can also see that the future of work is being impacted by the digital transformation. So if you look at the Tunisian youth, 47% of them are dreaming of Europe and want to move to Europe, and they are dreaming of leaving the country. So it's really relevant to find some ideas and some solutions for them to find a future in their own countries. If you look at the graduate unemployment, it's 34%. It's among the highest in the world, and these guys have capacities in there. They can do something. They just need the environment for that. So. A lot of time is also spent on e-commerce websites. It's actually not really proper e-commerce. It's just exchange platforms. So it's even more time than people spend on Facebook. So there is some kind of economic movement happening there. So yes, people are finding a way. It just needs to be integrated into a clear strategy of a real economy. So like Yed was saying earlier, that we need strategies for the textiles industries, for the shoemaking industries. All this is not being really strategized properly to give it a future in this transition. A lot is being said definitely on the startup scene. So Forbes has put Tunisia as one of the top 10 countries worldwide to launch your business, to start your startup. They might have forgotten some parameters because we are really having some hard time as startuppers. But it seems like an environment which has potential. What we've noticed as well is that there is a new generation of coders. Everyone is trying to build a coding school, and this is being done by the non-profit and for-profit organizations because people have seen potential there. The point is that we need to our countries to integrate this within a clear strategy of what kind of talent pool we want to build, for whom and for which industries. I'll hand over to Lebanon.
So, Beirut has been facing maybe a lot of instabilities for the past decades. But things have been moving since the early 80s when it's related to the tech and mainly the software part of it. So since the 80s, few companies started working mainly on banking services and serving even abroad, but based in Beirut. This movement have been shy after the official end of war. The whole ecosystem has changed. We have a very vibrant ecosystem. Starting 2001, we have the first incubator that's called Beirut. Actually, they have 2 incubators. We started having very interesting initiatives, even from the central bank. This has developed in having annual conferences like the BDL Accelerate, where we have the people, the likes of Wozniak and Tony Fadel coming and having 1,000 people in the audience just to listen to what they have next in the digital arena. So we've also, with the central bank, have created a product called Circular 331 that is mainly based into funding digital startups. This has partnered and taken things further, mainly with the UK Lebanon Tech Hub. I don't know if you know, but in Lebanon we have a major issue of brain drain. So we have a very high education level, good universities, but the market doesn't follow. And then, as we said, on the software scene, it's good, but when it gets to hardware, and there isn't enough labs in universities, because labs cost a lot of money. So when they want to develop further or take their products to a higher level, they end up leaving the country. And usually this is where the investors also push them to go abroad. What's interesting about UK Lebanon Tech Hub is that this initiative has supported so far over 70 companies, investing 16.5 million in the past 3 to 4 years. But what's more interesting in it is that there are certain conditions that these companies will be started in Lebanon and the main office will always remain in Lebanon, even if they go and expand in the UK, which is the purpose of this hub. So that's interesting because they are giving opportunity for a bigger market, but at the same time, we're not losing jobs in the mother country, and we're not losing the brains behind them. So another successful platform is the Beirut Digital District, where you have like 3 to 4 buildings now in the center of Beirut, all renting offices for digital startups, supporting them in the business learning as well. So they have programs for 3 to 6 months, and they incubate them as well. So I would say that on the private sector side of the issue, things are moving quite fast, quite interesting. It's not perfect. Still, the infrastructure lacks. The internet connection should be much better. Even the traffic on the streets like kills half of your energy, and still, Lebanese people are really entrepreneurs. So this is something within the culture. They depend on themselves. They don't depend on the government. We don't have social welfare. This is a luxury for us. We do it ourselves. This is what maybe makes young people more active on the startup scene. But we're lacking somehow on developing the social entrepreneur side, because we don't have a law in Lebanon that allows people to actually register a social enterprise. So NGOs and some CSR programs for private companies are taking over and supporting youth in the digital arena to go more into businesses with more social benefits, because every country needs this. So it's somehow the trend now. Businesses all around the world, they sell themselves as being for profit, but also being beneficial for their societies and communities. So here Tahaki is one of the interesting initiatives, and that's a platform that allows NGOs to map their data and open their online platform for them, and mapping their interests and their different activities. One of the recent maps, for example, was around where were the European refugee camps in the MENA region during the Second World War, which, because we were fed up of listening to the refugee crisis, whether in the region or in Europe, and someone had the idea of showing, like, you know, there were camps in Egypt, in Palestine, and in different areas. So this is also a tool that is being used by different other NGOs that support youth and young people to start social enterprises, like DOT, for example, who's actually, they are a youth-led movement, and they support youth who are starting a digitized social activity. So they support them with the training, but as well as incubating, but also using a platform like Tahaki, for example. DOT did a mapping of all the social enterprise ecosystem in Lebanon. So you just go to this app and find whoever can help you if you want to start a social enterprise. Another initiative that personally we're very proud of, because the NGO I'm active with is very involved in this one, is actually, we noticed that although this digital movement is growing, women are still less represented in these businesses or in this movement. And we started an initiative called Girls Got It, so Girls Got IT. And it's actually an event that happens on 2 days, where we have multiple workshops initiating young girls by the age of 15 or 16. It's a kind of orientation program, telling girls that it's interesting to get into the STEAM industry, so science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And a lot has been done since then. It has been a year and a half. We had UNICEF coming on board, because each event supports around 400 young girls, and it's somehow showing them role models of women, Lebanese women who already succeeded in this environment, in this business, and showing them the way to be able to do the same. So in general, that's it. I give back to, in a nutshell, actually, not in general. So.
Thank you. So, as I said before, this is now the part where we would like to listen to you, if you want. And we have been discussing amongst us the various types of initiatives that are going on in the Arab world. And I think what we try to do in the past minutes to give you also kind of feeling what is happening, and maybe you have a somehow better understanding of the situation there. And our conclusion at the end of the day was that, as I said before, the Arab economies and societies will be very, very much be affected by digitization, probably more so than the European ones. Our assessment was that right now those economies and societies are not very well prepared for digitization. I mean, what society is, but probably weak societies, fragile societies can be even more affected. We noticed that in most Arab countries, the government is trying to pick up on the situation, is trying to use those modern techniques and technologies to integrate them into kind of public policy. Although they have, like many governments do, a favorite look on the regulatory side. So it's not so much about innovation, it's more about regulation, which is very typical for governments. So Many governments are helpful, we have to say that, but probably not enough. And we notice simultaneously that there is a movement going on. There are numberless initiatives that are trying to change the situation, do something about the situation, but they are a bit left alone. And we notice that one of the characteristics of many of those startups is that they try to isolate themselves, shield themselves, and they have to do that out of self-protection. So they have to be very robust, they have to shield themselves from outside intrusion, which is helpful at the beginning, but on the other side, does not help you when you need to connect. And most of those initiatives are still very young, are very small, and they need to connect. So here then came the idea, and we approached our colleagues from Republica in Berlin and said, okay, can we do something like the Republica in the Arab world? We know that there are already numerous kind of conferences and government-sponsored conferences and meetings, but we want to do something which looks and feels a little bit like the Republica, which not only focuses on economics, but also has a notion towards culture, towards social enterprise, towards dialogue within societies, and we were very impressed with that. And we said, okay, we need to do something like that, and we want to have something like that in the Arab world as well. And we started discussing with the colleagues there, and I think they're a bit reluctant to be drawn into the Arab region, which is a difficult region. I mean, living there is not easy, but let's take it as a challenge. Doing conferences in Iceland is probably, or Norway is probably safer, but this could be more fun, we hope. So what we want to do is we want to do something like Republica here in Thessaloniki. We want to do that in the Arab world. We think it's possible. I think there will be demand, or we think there will be demand. And I think it would be a good idea to connect people that are working in isolation within countries and also among the Arab countries. And for those of you who are not from Arab countries, you probably have no idea how difficult it is for one Arab to travel into another Arab country. So we needed to figure out a place where we all could meet without the restrictions and limitations enforced by political borders. So the idea we had was that we still have, is that we'll have local chapters in countries where we try to connect people on a national level, and then maybe have some kind of annual event where we meet and discuss regional strategies, national strategies, try to help each other, maybe develop common project that could work, or maybe that best practices that could be reused in other countries, algorithms that could be reused in other countries. So our timeline is to first, this is the first milestone or timeline actually here. So we should open up a bottle or something like that. Is we wanted to discuss the situation or your feeling about this with you here in Thessaloniki, because it's the first Republica outside of Berlin. And then we want to have a kind of smaller session in Beirut in Lebanon beginning of next year. Why Beirut? As I said before, I think we need a liberal context. We need a city that is sophisticated and that has also very liberal travel policy. So most Arabs can travel to Lebanon, which is helpful. And the downside is that I think Beirut is as expensive as Zurich is by now, but anyway, can't have everything. So we want to have this first kind of small roundtable. We want to build up a measures that connect people, like a newsletter, like an electronic platform, etc., etc. So these are the ideas we're having, and also, of course, we want to draw in support. We have been talking to the guys from Republica. We are talking with the German Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We're talking with Western companies. We also want to talk with companies within Lebanon and other countries. So that's the idea, and I think we would be very grateful if we get your feeling out of it, even if you're not from the region, which by your faces, I gather are most of you, but nevertheless, any ideas more than welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So maybe I will give a first small feedback on the idea, also to the public, because as you know, we've been in Dublin last week, also, so we're second in Saloniki now, and we already planned a lot of other regions where we are going to, and you know, with a global innovation gathering, we have quite a long time experience with connecting people, more focusing on Africa and on Southeast Asia, and that created a network which could maybe be kind of a blueprint for what we can do together. So they do it in a quite similar way. So they gather locally in the region, and we are also looking for discussing in the next month, maybe helping to organize similar events somewhere more in the south of Africa, in the region where this, so it's mostly sub-Sahara part, where a lot of members of this global innovation gathering are located. All these innovation hubs, all these co-working spaces, etc., who are in the network, and they gather once with this network at Republika in Berlin. So they come all together because there is quite similar situation that it's easier to fly to Europe and meet than flying from maybe Tanzania to Ghana. And that's a very fruitful project, what we have since a few years. And what we as Republika learn in this years, in the last year, how different work is to organize conferences somewhere else in the world, even when it's in the European Union, and how different that is, have we seen now in the last week. So even what you put in the suitcase when you go to Dublin and to Saloniki is if you only have hand luggage, a good question. But and not joking about that, my point is that we will deliver an infrastructure in the next month before we start the preparation for the next Republika in Berlin, where we have a person or a small department in our Republika organization, which is responsible for the international partnerships. Because, as you may know, our core team at the moment, we are, including me, 4 people. So it is always a tough thing to scale up and scale down before we do this big show in Berlin. So we have a very slim organization, but this is also kind of an announcement what I can do, that we want to focus more on that. So we have to find a smart way, also how we develop the because it is very different. The Republika here in Dublin, much more intimate, much smaller than in Berlin. It's a different thing what we're doing. So we will really love to find ways how to create new packages of concepts which are fitting for regions. And one idea was and is, and that's why I like it so much, that you are here to establish also this Thessaloniki city as a hub for the Eastern Mediterranean region, which has also another focus then. So we were very open for a discussion in this direction, and we should follow up. And I think that somebody from us can join this roundtable, of course, and we would like to support as much as we can to make that real, because we see that all over the world, and we were also discussing at the moment to doing with the foreign office several projects, because approach with the digital society is not so often, as you mentioned. It is usually it's business or technology or culture or whatever, but it's not this broad mixture of topics in a conference. So this is quite unique, and they like to use that also as a kind of a role model for how the digital society is discussed in Germany, and so that brings us in a quite smart position to discuss with potential financial partners to realize things. So to keep this long short, we will in the next step invest in infrastructure in our team to realize more international projects, and so yeah, that's what we are doing, what we can do, and what we are trying to do in the next month.
Let's keep fingers crossed. We would look very much forward working with you.
Yeah, that's super, and I think this is the next step here. But I will open the round for everybody. So, do you have questions on the? Maybe we start with the two or three, the two regional and the one overall presentation. Do you have feedback on that, or comments, or questions? There have been a lot of content. I was surprised about the 100% Facebook market share in Tunisia. This is wow.
Everything clear? No feedback? What do you think? Should we do it?
Jillian comes with us everywhere.
I just want to go back to Beirut.
Hi, I'm Jillian. I've spent time in, well, at least your two countries. I forgot where you said you were from. And I guess my question is, my observation, and maybe I'm completely wrong, so please tell me if I am, is that at least in Lebanon in particular, that there seems to be like a disconnect between the startup scene and the communities that are working on digital rights issues. And I'm wondering if you see a way for this function to bridge that gap.
You mean those who are working on the laws and actually...
Yeah, on laws, on surveillance issues, freedom of expression, all of the things that kind of relate to rights online and in the digital world.
What's good and what's bad, there is no laws about it. So there's no limitation to freedom of expression, but at the same time, like with the local police, there is something called cyber police, but it's mainly to prevent any violations, or mainly with the terrorism risk. So this is what they observe, and less as freedom of speech. Let me remind you that till 2005 we still had Syrian presence as military in Lebanon. So between 1992 and 2005 this was a state, and some don't agree with me, but this is at least how I see it, and I'm part of the Lebanese who see it like this. We still consider that there was a political occupation and even a military one. And the law, somehow there were laws because they knew that people were not okay with having a Lebanese president appointed from Damascus, for example. So they put a law saying that you are sentenced to go to jail if you criticize the Lebanese president, for example, or the president of the minister's cabinet, or the president of the parliament. So this was somehow a political influence, but now the law still exists. We didn't have enough time to adapt them, but if this happens, for example, the president himself sends a decree saying, I don't want anybody to be arrested because they criticized me on social media. So if it happens for any reason, these people are somehow liberated. So the spirit is very liberal, as Ayad was saying. What's lacking is actually having more laws that can somehow help the scene to evolve more. So on the Internet of Things, on the new fiber optic, so it's not regulated, but it's not let's say limited, or it doesn't affect the freedom of speech or even the economical process. So startups are there, they're growing. The obstacles are elsewhere, but not related to any laws, because
if I just But what we want to achieve, for instance, with the conference, like we discussed, would be exactly this, you know,
Yes.
to bring people from different sides together. And I think there has been a tendency in the Arab world to focus mainly on the economic side, which makes sense. Yeah, and but I see it as a very fruitful situation to create a space where we can have different opinions and also different points of view on how the society of the future will look like. What I like about the digital transformation of societies, and I think that might be helpful for some decision makers in the region, is that it's usually not a revolution, right? But what you do first is you create new places of collaboration, you create new places of work, and only if those work, then the society changes. But it's not a revolution in the Marxist point of view where, you know, everything shuts down and the next day the new society works. So, but we have to work now on a new society with new forms of collaboration and do everything to pull them together so they can enforce each other.
Actually, the private sector is ahead of the public sector and ahead of the regulations, and that's the issue. So they're slacking behind, and the companies are way ahead.
Yeah, and to confirm, based on the Tunisian example, for instance, we do have exactly this, a completely fragmented landscape where the startups are thriving on their own, the civil society is growing in an unprecedented way. So we have 10,000 associations and NGOs that have been registered since the revolution, which is an amazing number compared to the size of the country. And we have the institutional part, so the government doing their stuff with their regulation. They're progressing, yeah, but it's just like in a disconnected way. So if we can create this dialogue platform, people, the awareness will be raised around what is the digital evolution or transformation, whatever it is, and how it is going to impact our lives. How is it going to impact this democratic transition, this society? So this is actually what's missing, actually, and the connection will be established in a very subtle way while creating this dialogue.
So, are there more questions? Okay, then thank you very much for coming. I'm very happy that we can follow up now this idea. I think we have definitely. It's a super idea and we should do it. So thank you again for coming. And our next, and maybe you come back to the discussion around which is coming at 6:45. We talk about migration of brains from Saloniki to Italy in this case. So the session is called Thessaloniki, Greece and Milano, Italy, Unsung Gateways of Migration. It's starting at 6:45 here, and maybe we could bring a little bit in the discussion we had here. And the session starts at 6:45, and hope to see you then. Thank you.
Thank you.